Well, we just want to say welcome. We're really glad that you could join us tonight for the Quiet Shift, navigating knife's transitions. So this is what we want to do with this time is we want to create a space where we can honor endings, where we can embrace beginnings, and we can start to find some peace in the in-between part. And so before we really just get going in it, I just want to thank you guys for showing up and honor you for that. Any conversations that happen about grief, loss, transitions, these are not easy conversations. And so it should be acknowledged that it takes courage to just pause and be willing to face some of the deeper things in our lives. And so tonight specifically, we're talking about transitions. These are the quiet shifts in life that leave us sometimes very hopeful and sometimes very disoriented and sometimes both at the same time. So life is, and if you will, full of seasons, and some of these seasons are ones in which we're eagerly stepping into. Some of these seasons we try to put off as long as possible. Some seasons we never even see coming. But what they all have in common is this: every fresh start means that something had to end. And so part of this is we're not just grieving the bad, we're also grieving the familiar. And so often the growth that we long for comes with grief that certainly no one has prepared us for. And so that's what we really want to dig into tonight is how to walk through life's transitions with honesty, hope, and ultimately healing. And so this is going to be part teaching, part reflection. I encourage you to take notes, grab a journal if that's your thing. But most of all, just I encourage you to be honest with yourself tonight. This is a safe space. You're not going to get any judgment here. No one's going to analyze you. This is just hopefully a space where you can feel like you can show up and be honest and really experience some healing. And so there's just a few things we want to mention. Vicki highlighted just to get the most out of our time together. This webinar is going to last approximately 90 minutes. The last 30 minutes are set aside for questions. And I just want to emphasize, we love questions. We will stay on as long as there are questions. We will be on answering them. And so also, I just want to throw out there that we would love to see you and connect. If at all possible, please have your camera on. I know sometimes you're in the car, or, there's any number of reasons why you won't, but if it is possible, we would encourage you to have it on. And lastly, feel free to interact with us in the chat. If you have any questions, put those in the chat as well, because we will absolutely address them in the Q&A at the end.
Yes. So tonight we're very excited to talk about transitions. And because we know that transitions happen to all of us, and some of them are expected. These are life seasons, like kids leaving for college, or maybe a retirement, right? That a retirement happens. Maybe you're moving to a new home. But others can come out of nowhere. It could be a divorce or a career ending sooner than planned, an unexpected health diagnosis, or maybe it's even suddenly needing to care for aging parents. So we wanted to look tonight about these three parts of transitions. And what's important to notice here, and Dan kind of alluded to this, is that transitions are never about just what's new. They also include these three parts. One is the ending of something familiar. Two is the beginning of something new. And three is the in between, which is that space where we feel like we're sort of in a free fall. Everything's different and new. So that in between is often where grief shows up. And it's where we wrestle with questions. Well, like, who am I now? What do I hold on to? What do I let go of? And being in that space can feel disorienting, it even when the change is something that we hoped for or something that's good, it can still be disorienting.
So unresolved grief is the conflicting feelings caused by the end of a familiar pattern of behavior. That's how the Grief Recovery Institute defines it. I really like that definition for so many reasons. I mostly because it just really accurately names what's going on. I would say one of the biggest misconceptions about grief is that it only shows up when someone passes away. The truth is, grief comes with any loss of what's familiar. When a season of life ends, right? That could be a breakup, moving, even a move that you're looking forward to, career shift, our children growing up. We're losing something that we knew. And with that loss, we usually experience a mixture of emotions: relief and sadness, excitement and fear, gratitude and longing, and probably a lot of other things besides. So it's important to know that conflicting feelings are normal. You're not crazy for feeling both joy and sorrow in the same breath. That's just the human heart trying to make sense of all the change it's experiencing. And so, one of the main things that we teach in grief recovery is that so much of what we experience in life are actually grieving moments that we don't know how to name, much less process. So, we create strategies to press and push away these conflicting feelings. And it was likely something we learned as we watched our parents struggle with life situations or losses or challenges, disappointments, transitions. I remember the first time that I heard this definition of grief when I kind of started getting involved in this, and I was blown away because of how much of my life journey and struggles suddenly began to make a lot of sense. I was grieving about a lot of things, and I just never realized that. All the therapy and recovery I had done up until that point never even touched on that. So, how could I have dealt with that? Right. So during our time together, we'll address questions like these. Where do I find steady ground when everything feels like free fall? What do I need to hold on to? And what do I need to let go of in order to move forward? Who am I now that what used to define me is ending? The bottom line is you don't have to stay trapped in this moment. You just need to be honest about where you are. Because the fact of the matter is, transitions are messy. One door closes, another cracks open, and in the middle, we hover. But it's in the middle that it is not failure. Sometimes we define it that way, but it's not failure. It's actually the place where grief, questions, and recalibration actually live. And so if you've come here hoping for answers or resources or just a safe place to wrestle with those questions, you are exactly where you need to be.
Yes, and that is exactly why we're here. Because when you experience healing like this, like we both have, you really can't help but want it for other people. So we've had both Dan and I have had incredible life-changing experiences as we've gone through the grief recovery program. Both of us, I went through it in 2003. Dan probably not long after me, literally like maybe a couple months, and it completely changed every relationship in my life. And I can honestly say it totally changed our marriage.
Yeah.
We definitely learned a lot. We got to get complete with a lot of things and learned a lot about communication with each other. And really, my kind of story, it didn't begin from a place of strength so much as from desperation. I was an adult. We had been married for a couple years, and my parents were going through a divorce. And it was the kind of thing where I'm the oldest daughter, and I kind of had that role in the family of holding everybody together. And
Mhm.
this was something that hit me like a ton of bricks. I got sick. I got adult onset asthma because one of the things that I've also learned is when you have a lot of unresolved grief and it doesn't know where to go, sometimes it will manifest itself physically. And I got really sick. And in that kind of place, I was led to this process. So it was life changing and life saving. And I don't even say that lightly. And that's why it became something that I knew right away. "Ugh, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I need to do." So we both are certified grief recovery specialists. We've both been doing this between us. We have a combined 26 years of experience of guiding people through this process. And literally, we've probably taken thousands of people through over the last 20 something years, 26 years. But what we've been able to do is be a witness and a partner along people's toughest changes and challenges to find true healing. And we've really witnessed an incredible truth. And that is that when people get free from the unresolved grief in their lives, they become free to be fully present as they navigate life. And there's a lot in that. There's a lot to say. And through all of that, I discovered a profound connection between unhealed grief and our physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
Yeah, life transitions are honestly, they're a constant. Some of them are chosen, some of them are unexpected, but they're always happening. And each transition is bringing both an ending and a beginning. But if we don't process what is ended, then that's where we often feel kind of that sense of stuckness or lostness or just a feeling of disconnection. And so now we're aware that every fresh start begins with an ending. And so again, we've sort of highlighted this before, but we're not just grieving the bad, we're grieving the familiar. And so even when change is good, it still means saying goodbye to what we've known. So, for example, maybe it's moving to a new city. That was a process we went through moving here. Um, Ending a relationship, changing careers, stepping into a season of growth that's positive, but it also requires letting go of what's comfortable, right? So no matter what kind of transition we find ourselves in, it's only when we're honest about what's ending that allows us to walk into what's next with a sense of clarity and peace. And so we just want to pause here for a moment, just like for 30 seconds. We're not going to draw it out and make it weird and awkward, but I would say that I would really encourage you to kind of go back over. You'll be getting a replay of this, but go back over and think about these questions. Like actually spend some time really thinking about them. And so, anyways, but in the meantime, I'll just pause for about 30 seconds. Putting the questions out there, give you a little chance to think about it a little bit. If you want to jot something down, certainly feel free to do so. But these are two questions. So just think about what is a recent ending in your life. Just could be big, could be small, but just a recent ending in your life that stirs up some type of emotional response, something in you that's stirring up some emotions. And then describe how it's impacted you. Like, and what I mean by that is like what you miss about it, or maybe what you wish could have been different. That's usually a really rich area to kind of mine if it's difficult to think about an answer to that question right away. So like I said, I'm just gonna put like 30 seconds on the clock. I want to draw this out too much. I just want to give you a little bit of a feel, for doing this. So let me just put some time on here. Okay.
We should have put some music.
I know. Like that music going on. Okay. So, like I said, I mean, clearly, it's I think a question that deserves more than 30 seconds, but we also want to be respectful of your time. So we're just having a few more of these where we're going to throw some questions out. We'll give you about 30 seconds to just kind of think about them a little bit. But like I said, we strongly encourage you to go back and really think and maybe spend some more time on these questions.
Yes. So now we're going to talk about this idea of when the familiar ends. And so even unhealthy or painful seasons can feel safe because they're known, right? They're familiar. And so changing them, even when we're ready for that change, it's uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
so definitely this pushes us beyond our comfort zone. And to grow, we really need to grieve what's no longer with us or what we're leaving behind. When we moved from California to Texas, it was a very big grieving experience. And doing this process for me, I did this process on my life in California, my home in California, all those things. It was incredible how I was able to really step in here when I got to Texas. Um, Way different than I know that I would have, because it was a hard move. It was very, but it was a great move. It was, I mean, an incredible move. But to grow, we must grieve. We must grieve that. It's really a way to honor these parts of our lives, because transition means stepping into the unknown, and unknown brings up its own sense of, maybe some anxiety or anything like that. So if you're in a life stage change, like your kids have gone off to college, or a job is ending, or maybe you've been caring for a parent or spouse who recently passed away after being ill for a while. These things that occupied your time and focus have now ended. And what comes along with that is an identity that's now changing. And an interesting part of this is that shift can open up space for dreams and things that maybe you've pushed to the back burner.
Mm,
And that can stir up both anxiety and excitement, but how to re-engage with those. And that brings up what we would call conflicting feelings. So
mhm.
we wanted to take a moment. We have a couple more questions for you. So try to take some time with this and maybe name these things. One, when has the end of a particular role or season given you space to rediscover a dream? And write down one dream or desire that may be reemerging for you in this season. And how do you feel about stepping toward it? And if you don't, these are things to ponder and think about, maybe even write them down and tonight think about them. This is just for you. This is not anything you need to share with us, but
Yeah,
it's,
this is not a test.
yeah, it's just something to really think about for a moment, because a lot of times when we're especially in a role, I homeschooled my daughter, and when she went off to college, it was quite a shift for me. And I realized, wow, I've been focused on this for so long, and now I have this space in my life. And it was exciting, but it also brought up a lot of things that I didn't have to deal with for a long time. So
Mm.
we'll take a couple seconds here to give you some space to just write whatever comes up for you as you think about these two questions.
Okay. All right. Like I said, these are good questions to mull on for longer than just 30 seconds. But gosh, maybe I should. Well, no, I shouldn't sing. I was going to say I could sing during but like we don't want to turn people away. So it's probably best I've not even hum really.
Mm.
Okay, so imagine that you are stepping into a new chapter. Okay. Uh, Here's the thing about growth: it doesn't come free. It costs us something. It might cost us our comfort. It might cost us an old identity. It might even cost us a relationship. But think of it like this: growth always requires some type of exchange. So, in order to step into something new, we often have to release something that once defined us, which, like I said, comfort, roles, identities, or even relationships. Obviously, this can feel like a pretty steep price to pay, but it is part of the transformation. And so when we're learning to grieve with honesty, right, we're able to start naming those things that we've lost. And we're starting to give ourselves some space to express those emotions. what we're doing is we're really opening the door for genuine healing. And at that point, grief actually becomes a bridge, not a barrier. Man,
Mm,
that is,
wow.
I wish I could say that again, but but it's important to understand though that these transitions, they're not just like hurdles to try to get through. They're actually, if you really approach them, um, they're invitations to deepen trust, rediscover purpose, and actually embrace a future that feels lighter and freer. And so, again, let's take a moment. I'm not going to, just like 30 seconds, to just think about these questions. You are being invited into something new, even if it means releasing the familiar. Just think about that. Like there's something, because we're always in some form of transition. Could be big, could be small. So think about one area that you've been holding very tightly. How could you grieve that and then take a hopeful step forward? So just take 30 seconds, just kind of ponder on that. Okay. All right. Food for thought. Food for thought.
Yes, so good. So as we've talked about tonight, transitions are never about what we're stepping into. They're not just about that, right? They're also about what we're letting go of. And most of us were never really taught how to grieve endings in a healthy way. We either try to ignore pain, we minimize it, or we just move on. Just, buckle up your bootstraps and you keep moving forward. But the truth is that growth and freedom come when we're able to make peace with what we've lost. And here's really where a lot of us get stuck because we don't give ourselves permission to feel it. Our culture teaches us to stay busy, to be strong, to keep moving. So, what happens with that? Grief doesn't go away, it finds other ways to show up. So, it shows up like this in self sabotage. So, ways that you avoid opportunities, you stay small, keeping things down, self sabotaging behaviors, in carrying heaviness into new seasons. So, when you're unable to fully embrace a new season because you're carrying a heaviness that is real, that is there, but there's ways that you can process through that. And another way that we carry it is in our bodies through stress, fatigue, illness, like I was talking about. So if we don't attend to our grief, we end up carrying, dragging the weight of our past into our future. And that keeps us stuck in patterns that we don't even realize are connected to loss, that are
Yeah.
connected.
And the good news, healing is possible. This isn't some far-fetched pie in the sky kind of thing. Actual healing is actually possible. But it should be pointed out that healing doesn't mean forgetting, right? It doesn't mean that you'll stop missing what was. It means that you'll become emotionally complete with it. And emotional completion is what enables you to step into the next season without carrying the heaviness of the last, like Vicky was talking about a moment ago. And so we're not saying you just have to move on, but we are saying, you know what? There are tools that can help you in the in between. That's what we are saying.
Okay, so the process. I love this. So there's 3 steps that we're going to talk about tonight. Is step number 1 an honest acknowledgement, acknowledging that honestly, right? Step number 2 is allowing space to grieve. And number 3 is to choose intentional completion. So, like we always say, you don't need to become someone new. You don't need to reinvent yourself. Actually, what this is about remembering who you really are beneath the pain. Because when you embrace this process, you become free to step into what's next with an open heart.
Yeah. And so step one, the honest acknowledgement, and again, you've actually already engaged in that. That's what all those questions were about, was
Yeah.
trying to help us just take some honest acknowledgement of this is what's going on right now. And so part of that is naming whatever the loss, saying aloud what changed, what you missed, what you wish had been different. It's just speaking this. And again, it seems like a little step, but a lot of times we we keep this stuff inside and we don't express it. It just sort of stays there. Step two is allowing ourselves to have some space to grieve. Um, we're constantly bombarded with busyness on every side. We have stuff coming up in our smartphones and notifications, or there is an absolutely unbelievable amount of demand on our attention.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to sort of lose ourselves in busyness. But this is where we need to give ourselves permission to feel what's going on. It's okay to hold on to, for example, the gratitude for what was, as well as the ache of that thing being gone. And so this is where we need to allow ourselves to have space to do that. The third step is to really choose intentional completion. This isn't just going to go away on its own if we wait long enough, right? This is where recovery comes in. We are never going to just quote get over it, right? We have to take specific intentional steps in order to experience emotional completion. And that means that we're saying the unsaid. That means we're letting go of the unfinished. And ultimately, it means bringing closure, a sense of completion to the loss.
Yeah, and that's a great question that someone asked in the chat. What does emotional completion mean? And that's really what it's about is we use the word completion instead of closure so much, like to explain when you're getting emotionally complete with something, that means that you have processed your emotions. You've gotten into what your emotional truth is about a loss, a situation, if there, was a breakup or whatever the situation was or the trauma was, that there's a way for you to process that to help you connect to your emotional truth, process that out loud in a safe place. And when you do that, one of the definitions that we have of unresolved grief is that it's oh, I'm blanking. It's not the conflicting feelings is one. It's what's the other one, Dan? It's
Of the
when you're
emotional nature.
Yes. Yes, when you're getting complete because you're expressing what's inside when you're expressing that of an emotional nature. So unresolved grief is getting complete with that. So that's how the process works, and that's what we get on the other side is an emotional completion. So hope that that helps. Hope that that answers your questions. And I know that Dan covered that a little bit in that step 3, but
We'll definitely go over that in the Q&A for sure.
yeah, we'll go deeper into that. So leaving home, this is really an opportunity I wanted to just share for a second about a client that I had just worked with, and she was an empty nester. Her last of 3 kids moved out and went off to college, and it was her daughter, and they were really close. And she kept saying, everyone around her is saying, "This is so exciting. You're going to have so much freedom." And it was really causing her to struggle. And because she felt like she was supposed to be somewhere emotionally that she wasn't. And so she felt this deep ache that she couldn't name. And she really couldn't even think about what to do with this freedom because her role, her purpose, and really her everyday life had changed so profoundly. And so through the work, she was able to honor what she was losing. And the day to day presence of her daughter was big. And so it was like a new level of letting go while embracing this new season ahead. And it's not about pushing it down, it's about moving through it. And what comes with that is clarity and hope and the ability to be fully present in where you are. which is huge. It's just huge. And along with that, honestly, comes the ability to have boundaries and to have clarity. It's just amazing all the things that doing the grief recovery work helps with just that clarity in the moment. Um, and we love to talk about this. This is this idea of freedom from and freedom to, because this is why we call what we do freedom from grief. Because the truth is, we can't experience strong, healthy relationships while carrying the weight of unresolved grief. And this is why everything begins by finding freedom from the pain of grief, trauma, and loss in order to have freedom to experience your life and relationships to the full. So, this transformation really happens in two phases. And that's first getting free from the things keeping you stuck, which is like grief, trauma, loss, which creates self sabotage. And then you become free to live with purpose the life that you were meant for. And so, unfortunately, a lot of times recovery programs encourage you to step into freedom without first releasing the weight of your past. And that's why so many people can remain stuck. But you don't have to. You don't have to be one of those, because we're not about moving forward, kind of limping along or white knuckling anything. The whole point of healing is not so that we can tolerate pain better. We have already learned how to survive sorrow. We've already become used to anxiety, and we're well acquainted with disappointment. Healing is what allows us to escape from the bondage of the self limiting behaviors that come, and that empowers us to step into freedom. And so, for that, what we need are hearts that are not resistant to hope. Have you ever felt that way, that you just don't even want to hope or you don't want to believe? Because we can have resistance to that when we have so much unresolved grief and pain. So this is just such a deliverance from this bondage, and kind of a belief that sometimes we can even believe that the only thing we have in life is just to endure it. And that's not living. And yes, we're going to have to go through things that are hard. And yes, we have. But this is about freedom, not just from what hurt you, but also for what heals you. So losses can shake our identity, like we've been talking about. And a lot of times after a loss or a breakup or a change like this, people can ask, who am I now? And sometimes we can feel like we've lost more than just the person or the situation, the role that we have. But we can also lose our dreams, our sense of safety in the world. And if our identity becomes too entwined with those external relationships or roles, then it comes really as no surprise that grief can leave us feeling lost. It can leave us feeling like conflicting, and we don't know what to do with that. And so part of this process is really building emotional resilience. And it involves really reclaiming a deeper sense of who you are so that you can navigate, and go through loss without losing yourself, without hurting yourself,
Yeah.
without that.
Yeah. So you could say well, actually in many respects, healing is a journey. It's not a destination, and yours doesn't end here. The grief recovery method is a structured, compassionate roadmap that really is designed to help you process buried sorrow and reclaim your full self. And so, through guided steps, total support, curated resources, you will learn how to honor each loss, to speak the grief you've been unable to say, and then experience real emotional renewal and self-integration. But this path is not meant to be walked alone. And so Vicki and I are committed to offering the encouragement and practical tools you need. And that means walking every step, celebrating every breakthrough, all of that, as you are moving towards the promise of wholeness. The Grief Recovery Method is also the only evidence-based program designed to help you experience emotional completion with losses of every kind. This is not a forget it program. This is not a get over it program. This is an experience freedom program. And so whether you're navigating a divorce, a change in careers, empty nest, health challenges, the loss of a dream, or any of the other 40 different kinds of losses we'll go through in life. This is a process that will bring clarity and peace and resilience to you as you're stepping into your next chapter, whatever that is. And so I would just say, if tonight has stirred something in you, if you're recognizing yourself in this in between, then we invite you to take the next step with us in that process.
Yeah, and the program, it is 8 weeks. It's amazing. It's one-on-one sessions. We meet weekly for an hour and a half. And these are very powerful sessions. We meet on Zoom and we walk you through the Grief Recovery Handbook. And the handbook is brilliant. It's been around for the Grief Recovery Method has been around for over 40 years. And this really helps you heal old wounds. It'll help you challenge limiting beliefs and embrace your next chapter. So, like Dan said, you are never alone in this process. And we also offer ongoing support, even in between the calls, between the sessions. And if you happen to be here and you've done grief recovery, if you are at one of our beloved alumni, then you're always welcome back. And you can join alumni sessions because the work that you do, what you'll find is that you can apply this work once you learn the tools and you can do it for other relationships and other situations. And we recommend that you do. We recommend that you do more and more of it because each time that you do, the healing goes deeper and it's so incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we want to share the real value of the program because when you consider everything that's at stake, which is your emotional and physical health, your general happiness, your relationships, because all of those things, believe it or not, are affected by unresolved grief. And you'll really begin to see how valuable this program is. And we've personally spent several years and thousands of dollars on therapy and self-help things and seminars and programs, and all of them were part of our journey, but we never experienced the transformation that we did with the grief recovery method. So we know that the value of this program is incredible, and we really desire and want you to experience that for yourselves.
Yeah. So just take a minute. We've probably stirred up some thoughts. So take a minute to think about the emotional or physical pain that you're carrying right now. You know, that kind that lingers very quietly beneath the surface, but it's still there. Think for a moment about the losses that you've buried, or the grief you've never fully named, the trauma that your body is still holding on to. And then imagine what it would feel like to move through life without that heaviness, to wake up feeling grounded, feeling a sense of wholeness, to be present in your own body. And I want you to sink in, let that sink in, because it's something that's absolutely possible. Like I said, this is not a pie in the sky, thing. This is something we've personally experienced in our own lives and seen in the lives of countless others. Here's the thing, we can't undo what's already happened, but we can begin attending to what's happening inside us right now. Because emotional healing isn't just a mental process, it's also a physical one. When we're naming and processing our pain, we're not just experiencing a better emotional state, we actually begin to feel safer, calmer, more at home in our own skin. And that's really where the real transformation begins. Because it's from that place of healing that we start to unlock an entirely new level of resilience in our lives. And that resilience allows us to feel without being overwhelmed. It allows us to rest without feeling guilt. It allows us to respond to life's challenges without being emotionally hijacked. It's self-awareness, it's freedom, and basically it changes everything.
Yes. So we want to break down the total value of what you get from this process and this program. So we offer a 30-minute consultation call, and that is free. That is totally, we want to just hear your story. We want to get to know you and see how we can come alongside and teach you the tools of grief recovery to apply. in your own life. It gives you 8 weeks of 90-minute one-on-one Zoom coaching calls and support in between, and it's a value of $1,200. And someone else is coming in. Let me get them
Oh,
in. Okay. Um, and we also want to offer something special as a thank you for joining us on today's webinar. So if you are ready to take the next step right now, we're offering the free consultation call and $100 off of the grief recovery method, which normally would be 1,200. So it's a savings of 100, which would bring it to 1,100. And that's, over a course of 8 weeks. So we can talk about that. We can set up payment plans. We don't want anything to hinder anybody to get the process and to get started. And really during our consultation call, what we do is we'll explore how we can support you, answer, of course, any questions. And really what we do is create a personal roadmap for your healing journey. And like I said, if you're an alumni, we encourage you to book a call too, because if you're considering doing some more work with us, we'd love to talk to you about that and see how that could look for you.
yeah. I mean, the bottom line is this: dealing with painful emotions is scary. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat that. But just try this thought exercise with me. If all this program did was help you heal the unresolved grief that's been holding you back from showing up as the person you would like to be, wouldn't that be worth it? If all this program did was just equip you with the tools to create a life where you were thriving, where you were growing, where you were living in deeper connection with the people that you love, a life where you felt safe and emotionally grounded, wouldn't that be worth it? Imagine what your life could be like if this is the kind of transformation you were able to experience. And the good news is that you don't have to imagine this. This is what this program does for you and so much more. In fact, I just want to go one step further with this. Take a moment to consider the cost of staying exactly where you are right now. Consider the cost of continuing to struggle with self-sabotage, with damaged relationships, unresolved grief. This is an investment in you and your future. And it's an investment you are totally worth making.
Yeah. And we want to share some of the concerns that people have shared with us, and you might have some of these same concerns. And we will definitely talk about this because we're about done and ready to open it up for Q&A. But before we do, one of the questions that we get is, well, I'm not really sure if this is going to work for me. And we want to tell you that everyone that we have worked with who fully committed and completed the process has experienced incredible transformation. Like everybody. The only way you don't is if you don't complete, if you don't finish. And it's really amazing to watch people. We love what we get to do because we
Yeah.
get to be a witness and we get to be part of that. Another question that we get sometimes is, I've tried everything. And we want to tell you that we know that this is truly different. It goes deeper and it actually rewires our thinking at both an emotional and neurological level. It does. It's incredible. And another question we get is, it's expensive. And so, like Dan said, we want to ask, what is it costing you to stay the same today and next month and next year? We know time flies. Like it's September 2025 already. Where did this year go? It feels that way. So we know that everything we learn costs something, right? And if you can think of anything, I can't think of anything more deserving than an investment in yourself, because it's also an investment in your family. If you're a parent, it's an incredible investment in your kids because they will learn by experiencing you how to process grief and loss in a healthier way. Because we learn more by experience than we do by, talking or by
Yeah,
getting taught something,
that's for
right?
sure.
So it's really an investment in that, in your marriage, in your parenting, in your legacy, in your whole family. Another question sometimes is, I'm kind of afraid to deal with my grief. And it can be a scary process. And it can feel a little bit like, oh, if I open Pandora's box, I don't know what's going to come out and I don't know. And we promise you that one of the beautiful things about this process is that it is a very structured process. Each week builds on itself. And so it's not kind of like this open and we leave you like fumbling around with all these emotions. We walk with you, we're available in between calls, and the program is so well done and it walks you right through every step of the way. Um, and another one that we get is why bring up the past? And I just want to move forward. And I'll even have people that I'll be working with, and they'll have family that tell them that. Why are you bringing up the past? And we
Yeah.
hear this often because most of us have learned to survive by not feeling, by not bringing up the past. So it can feel a little bit like this is going to slow me down. I really don't have time for this. And the truth is, we really don't move forward until we process our wounds and our grief and our losses. We really don't. We might have forward movement, but you will find that what you're leaving in your wake is not going to be as healthy as it could be if you got complete as you move forward.
Yeah.
So we want you to know that it's so important because you really won't move emotionally forward until you process what's behind you. And so, and I always want to add in this spot that GR is not grief recovery. I say GR, but grief recovery is not an intervention type of program. So you have to want this for yourself in order to experience the breakthrough that this work will bring. So if you're kind of thinking about people in your life that could use this, which is a natural thing to do, but if you're thinking of someone that you love, maybe that could really benefit from this, it's probably an indication that it would be good to consider for yourself.
Mm.
And as you go through something like that, then the people in your life are going to see a shift in you because you can't fix anybody else. We can't do that.
Yeah.
But what we can do is take responsibility for our own emotional walks and lives. And as we move forward, it's going to permeate and radiate, and everyone around you is going to benefit from that because you
Yeah.
have to really want this in order to step into it and move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. This program is honestly, it's unlike anything I've ever experienced. It's like we said before, it's a step-by-step action program. You're fully supported through the entire process. We never ask you to do anything that we don't do first. And honestly, you're going to be amazed at how much transformation happens in just 90 minutes a week for 8 weeks. Because every session is building on the next as it's uncovering and healing so much more than you can even imagine right now. But I do want to put a word in here. This is something you like Vicky mentioned, but you it's so important that you are doing this for yourself. If if you're here because somebody's been bugging you about it for a long time and you're like, okay, fine, I'll just then that's not a good reason to do it, to get someone off your back. If someone's like leveraging you in some way or coercing you in some way or like kind of don't the only way that you are really going to get benefit from this is if you're truly wanting to do it for you. And if you don't, please don't do it. And that's okay. That's okay. Everybody finds things in their own time. But I just always emphasize that so much because I would never want anybody doing this who's kind of being like forced into it or like leveraged into it somehow. Only it's only going to be a transformation when it comes from a place of wanting to do it for yourself. So anyways, um, but back to this. So our only resource for the 8-week program is the Grief Recovery Handbook. It's very small. It's very easy reading. It's included in the program. It's backed by more than 40 years of research. In fact, this program is really the gold standard in recovery from grief and loss. It's pretty amazing.
Yes. And I wanted Danielle to answer your question. What you would do is you work with one of us. So we do one-on-one with people. Sometimes, I'm We work sometimes with couples where Dan will work with a husband, I'll work with a wife. We don't always, it's just whoever you're comfortable with. So a one-on-one session is with one of us. You only work with one of us. So that was your question. And we'll answer more of those after.
Okay.
But sorry, what was that?
I was going to say, how do you determine which is a better fit for
Um,
one-on-ones?
yeah,
It's
you know
really
what?
entirely
That's a
up to
great.
you.
Yeah, it totally is entirely up to you. There are times that some people feel more comfortable with a woman. Sometimes, depending on maybe your past or your wounds, sometimes you're more comfortable with a man. And either one is totally fine for us.
Okay.
We just want to both make ourselves available, and whatever you kind of feel drawn towards is totally. And at
Yeah.
the end, we're going to put a link up to our Calendly links, and it's on a page where you can access both of them. So yes, great question.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's awesome. Yeah. Um, yeah. And so we just want to encourage you. We want to leave you with this and then open it up for more questions. But every ending carries grief, even the good ones. And you are not weak for feeling conflicting emotions in seasons of change. It's the normal and natural response to things that change, is to have those conflicting emotions. And now, after tonight, you're going to know, oh, this is grief. If you're having feelings and you can't really put words to it, it's probably grief. It's conflicting feelings. And healing is possible. So you can honor what was and still embrace what is next. And you don't have to go through this alone. We want to be in this with you. And we know that the process of grief recovery gives you a proven pathway to get it complete in this way with the past so that you can step forward in hope and freedom. And so we want to just encourage you to be open to releasing any of that pain so that you can really step forward with hope and freedom. And so we want to give you the space to dream again. We really do. And to invite that in. And so I'm going to put those in the chat right now. If you click on that link, that'll take you to our links right there. And I love this quote. It's a gentleman named James Sherman. And it says, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. And so we would definitely be honored to walk this journey alongside you. And we want to just thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, we really appreciate you joining us. And we know that, there's a lot of things you can be doing with your time. Before we close for tonight, we just want to make sure that we answer any questions that you have. It could be about anything we've shared this evening or how these ideas connect to your own season of transition, about the grief recovery process, literally any question you have. And honestly, there's no small or unimportant questions. If it's on your heart, it matters. We are going to be on to answer every question. So, we love, like I said at the beginning, we love questions. And we will be on as long as you need us to. So I will turn it over to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can put it in the chat or you can just unmute yourself. We're happy to
Either
chat.
way, yeah.
I want to say, Brenda, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. I worked with Brenda. Wow, it's been at least 6 years ago because it was before 2020 because we were doing it in person. And Brenda just wrote, as an alumni, I can definitely state that this is life-changing. And it's not one of those programs that you find yourself needing to go through it again because they leave you with tools that are user-friendly. I'm online because I'm trying to convince someone to sign up without making them feel forced. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Brenda, you are such a sweetheart.
I think
Yes.
J-Man had a question. Or I saw a hand on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just kind of question about I forget the terminology you used, but finding freedom and dealing with the emotions and the grief involved in loss. How I'm I'm questioning how one deals with a grief that's present and then transition into looking forward to what comes next or what's new, as you guys were saying. without knowing whether or not it almost sounds as if you're disconnecting from what was so that you can then connect with what may be in the future but I guess in my own circumstance, I don't really know whether or not that disconnecting is something to which, I mean, there's grief going on right now, but I don't know how to both disconnect from it in terms of I don't say managing the grief, but bringing healing from the present grief without also disconnecting from it and being ambivalent to the the possibilities of the future of that of there being restoration. I don't know if that really makes sense or not. It's like I'm almost picturing the grief to be you're kind of dealing with the grief and kind of bringing the completion, as you said, or closure, as most people might say. Um, but in doing so, it seems as though what comes along with that is like an ambivalence to whether or not, let's say, a relationship that's not severed, but to which is separated. Um, how does one deal with the grief of not of the separation without the severment of it, meaning that you don't know what the future holds with it. So the grief is real, um, without just totally disconnecting and just being turning yourself off to any future possibility of there being reconciliation in that relationship. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is that it's not about figuring out how to shut something down or how to not feel something. It's actually about how to navigate those things. So you're not pretending like the past didn't happen, but you're also not bringing in a heaviness about the direction of the future either. It allows you to be open to receive what's going on, without being disconnected, because disconnection is just sort of like kicking the emotional can down the road. It's not going to go away unless it's processed. And processing is actually engaging with the emotion and going through it. It's not about forgetting it or ignoring it or like kind of managing it somehow. It's really just about expressing it, owning it, naming it, and then being able to have the other side be open to what possibilities are there. It's not about predicting a particular outcome or defining that outcome. It's just simply saying, what's the possibility? What are the options? And that's the state. I don't know. Does that help understand or
Probably will take a little bit more time for it to sink in for me.
Yeah, I would love to add to that too. Great question. And it actually makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to give kind of like a scenario. Like, let's say you're in a marriage and that marriage is separated. Let's say you're separated right now. And
Yes.
and you don't know, what the future holds, whatever the situation is. When you do the process of grief recovery, what you're doing is you're getting emotionally complete. Like you could get emotionally complete with that relationship for you. She doesn't have to be there, or your partner doesn't have to be there, right? It's just you. And so what happens in that process is that you are able to process it so that you can show up in the moment with more clarity because you've worked through things. It's almost like, the luggage that we carry forward with us, and then things happen in our interactions and we're triggered and we're responding out of pain and all these unresolved things. So imagine that while you're in this time that you're separated, you're taking the time to focus on healing, what's happened for you in this relationship, maybe even what's happened with you before this relationship, like in your childhood. Like, who knows what could come up, but all of those things are part of your process. They're part of your story, right? And so what happens is that you're able then to show up in that relationship in a very different place. The triggers will not be the same. And I love your questions over here. We're going to get to those, Danielle and Brenda, but your responses are going to be different. Your clarity is going to be different. You're going to be able to, you know how sometimes when you're triggered by something and you don't even know, next thing you know, you're reacting and you're responding. And what the process does is helps you get healing that you can't get from that person or in, maybe even trying to communicate. That what it's
I understand. I
yeah,
understand the example you gave a moment ago where you're responding based upon triggers, and so I that resonates with me. That's why I'm here.
that,
And it makes sense. Like I can like formulate in my head and figure it out in my head, and how past experiences, past relationships, past griefs or hurts can affect, present
yeah,
circumstances, present responses, present relationships. I'm still having a very difficult time like wrapping my head around the how to bring completion, because I guess in my head the completion part also signifies um like the completion as in what we normally think of as completion, which is that completion as in finishing. So how does the completion of sorting through these emotional griefs and finding emotional completion without necessarily ending emotionally or mentally the attachment or the
the relationship.
uh yeah, yes.
Yeah. Oh my
Well,
gosh, that's exactly. Let me
yeah.
just say this. What I wanted to just share is that what we talk about, it's an interesting thing because when you are able, one of the gifts is when you get emotionally complete with something, then you're opened up to a new emotional relationship with that person. And that can happen whether you're together or not, whether someone's passed away or not. Like what you're doing is you're working through these things, and the emotional completion is for you. That doesn't necessarily mean the end of a relationship per se, but it's going to be that you're going to be able to come into it in a new emotional space that's going to be elevated and healed in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I just want to add one last thing on the idea of completion. It might be helpful to think of like completion. Let's say you and I were having a conversation on the phone and we talk for a while and then I go, okay, well, I got to head out. It's been great, chatting. We'll talk again next week, bye-bye. And you say bye-bye and the conversation concludes. Well, just because our conversation ended doesn't mean our friendship did. Like, it's just that that conversation has completed its course and we both hung up the phone. But the relationship continues, right? And so um, that's kind of this idea of closure versus completion. Like closure is like, okay, it's over, and then you never communicate again. It's like a period, Whereas this is more like a semicolon. It's like, yes, it's concluded, but there's more. And so I don't know if that kind of helps with the idea of completion and so forth with the relationship.
That analogy makes a little bit more sense. It still requires a little bit of my head
Yeah.
wrapping around it. But
Yeah.
thank you for that
And
analogy.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I would say get on a call. We'd be happy to talk with you more. And one thing that was coming up in my mind while you guys were talking was what a perfect time to do this while you're separated, honestly. Because I mean, it's always a good time, but it would be amazing for you to do work like this and to be able to re-engage with the conversation in a place of healing, that it would be very, very it would be amazing for you. And whatever happened with the relationship, it would put you in an amazing place. So I would encourage you to reach out. We'd love to chat more. Definitely. I think
Danielle had a question.
yes, Danielle. Okay, what makes both of you advanced recovery specialists? What are your qualifications, certifications? Yes, we are certified by the Grief Recovery Institute. And you can, yeah, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay, man. So the Grief Recovery Institute is, you can look them up. You can go on griefrecoverymethod.com. And the Institute was started, gosh, I don't even know what year, but I got my certification in 2003. I went through the certification, and so what it is it's a program and it's a process, and that's how we hold our advanced recovery specialists. So that's who we're certified through. And if you look at their website, you'll see all that they do. We have people that do what we do all over the world in, I don't even know how many languages at this point, a lot. And I know in Russia and Ukraine and all over. So it's really exciting that it's grown as much as it has. Yes, and Dan just posted, John James and Russell Friedman are the founders of the Grief Recovery Institute. Yeah, and I feel like,
Yeah.
man, they were just so ahead of their time. It's just so brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, they
And
were great guys.
Brenda, is completion the same thing as being resolved? In a lot of ways, I would say yes. Emotional completion gives you a feeling of that, of resolved. I can say that being emotionally complete and using the tools, like you were saying, you got the tools. So the more work that you do, kind of the more emotionally complete you are. So when you have triggers by things is a good way to see if you're resolved, because if you're able to choose how you're going to respond in a moment. So when you're triggered and you have a reaction, you're not really choosing, you're just reacting. And so when you're processing and you're doing that healing work, then what happens is when you're triggered by your spouse or by your kids or by your job or by traffic, by someone cutting you off in traffic, like whatever it really gets you, you're going to see that your responses are going to come from a different place because they're not so loaded with
Yeah.
pain and connection to things that they possibly are right now.
I would throw out there too, there is like, you get completion in a sense, and you still have habits around that though. And so I don't want to suggest that, oh, you go through the completion process and then you like perfectly respond everything, because you don't. But what it is it's like it kind of opens up like a choice, you know. Do we always choose the best? No, we don't. We make mistakes, we're human. But there is that sense of it feeling like, oh, I could have made a better choice versus, oh my gosh, I don't even know what came over me. I just snapped, or I don't even know, coming out of a reaction versus coming out of a response, right? But yeah, it's a very different, world. Like I'll give you an example. Like one of my early triggers in our marriage was Vicky worked at a salon, and my mom she had a cardiac arrest when I was 8, and she was like out of my life, gone. Like I went to bed and she was my mom, and then for the next 13 years she's a vegetable. My dad and I are taking care of her. So my wife goes and she's late. Now most people just go, oh, my wife probably had a client that ran late. Not me. In my head, I'm like, oh my God, my wife's dead. She's gone. How am I going to live without her? I mean, like, I love her. And now my life is, what am I going to do with my life? It's, I mean, like, that's where I'm in my head, because it was like an immediate just reaction to it, because there were all these triggers attached to it. And then processing through, on the other side of it, it was just like, yeah, I might have a little flash of concern, but it was like, my wife's she's just running late, it's like, she's not dead, So that was, kind of an extreme example, but also like, that's where I was very early on with these triggers,
Yeah. From a very traumatic childhood you had. Yeah. And it makes me also think there was a gentleman that I worked with a few years ago, and he came in because his marriage was, they were struggling, and they were struggling because he wasn't engaging emotionally. And there was a mom and 2 daughters, and he kind of had created this garage that was impeccably organized, and he would sort of retreat there when things got a little crazy in the house. And when we were working through stuff, he realized that as a child, his parents, it was very tumultuous in his home growing up. His parents, they fought a lot. There was a lot of crazy kind of things going on. And he, as a little boy, would retreat into his room and he liked order. And so his room was very ordered, all of his books and toys. And what he realized is that he was at a state in his marriage where his wife was like, "You're not present at all," because he would retreat to somewhere where he felt order and he felt safe. And it was amazing as we worked through like his foundational relationships in his life growing up, and he made the connection to, oh my gosh, I don't have the tools to, when things are chaotic. He had two teen daughters and a wife, and things got chaotic. He just would sort of just kind of pull out, and she just felt like, I'm doing this alone. And it had gotten so deep that but when he made those connections and he did some healing work on that, it made it very different for him to be able. Now he was aware of it. It's not like he was like, I'm never going to need to retreat, but then they were able to communicate and they were able to process through, okay, how do we do this? How do I handle chaos? How do I handle when things are, I don't know, what to do? That's a trigger and I'm going to respond. Anger, alcoholism, addictions, all kinds of addictions, almost all addictions have unresolved grief underneath them because those are just that's the trigger, that's the reaction. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of hope when you deal with the root, and it's amazing how the process helps you to connect to it too. Like all the steps that we do really help you to connect to that. Yeah, I had a lot of therapy in my life. I am a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober for 32 years, I think, coming up. And I've been in programs and recovery since I was 26. Well, actually before that, since I was 18, but I got sober at 26. And so I started that process, and everything that I did was helpful, but I can tell you nothing got to the root like this. And in a short 8 weeks, I was like, I can't believe I'm able to know how I'm feeling in the moment and understand boundaries and be able to speak up instead of shut down. And Dan would go, "Where are you?" And I wouldn't even know for a couple days like what I was feeling. And to be able to be present and know how I was feeling and have a voice. And I was like, okay, I don't even know I can't even explain what just happened, but something very powerful just happened. And I literally signed up to get certified like within a month of finishing because I was so amazed at how much it had helped me in areas that I had been trying to get help for a long time, a long, long time. So I feel like we every month we do webinars like this and we choose a topic, and transitions is an amazing topic because that is really like we talk about unresolved grief is conflicting feelings caused by the end of a familiar pattern of behavior. And so transitions are a huge grief inducing situation. And so but we have, we do topics like addiction, like boundaries, like having attachment underneath attachment issues and attachment styles, and this work is just under all of it. It's amazing. It's amazing how far reaching that it is. So
Yeah.
yes, very good. I'm just scrolling up to make sure. Anything else? Danielle, did that answer your question? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. How did you find out about this tonight?
One of my girlfriends is one of your clients, and she highly
Oh,
recommended it to me.
great.
Oh.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank her for me.
I will. I'm texting her right now.
Okay. Awesome. Yes. Yeah. And if there's anything else, like if you have any other questions and we have that, and we will be sending you an email tomorrow. It'll
Yeah.
have the replay, and we're also going to be sending you an ebook that'll kind of be really just talking about the things we talked about here tonight, but an ebook that you can have and look over. And
Also, I would say too, like, obviously this is sort of like a topic that's on the heavier side of things. And so a lot of times, in the moment there you might have questions that aren't even occurring to you, and it might not for like a day or a week or whatever. So that's why, you have the links and the replay, and you can always reach out and set up, time to talk to us, and we're always happy to do that because questions don't always happen like on cue at the Q&A
Right.
section of a webinar. Like sometimes they happen like 2 weeks later, so yeah.
But yeah, if there aren't any more questions, we can close it out.
Yeah.
Yes, we can definitely do that. What we'll do, I'm going to call you J-Man because I don't know your name, but what we'll do is we'll close this out. We'll stop the recording, and we're happy to stay on a little bit longer with you. We can definitely do that. Brenda, thank you. Thank you for being here. It's so good to
Yeah,
see you.
thank you, Brenda. Thank you,
Yeah,
Danielle.
it's great to see you. But yeah, so what we'll do is we'll close it out. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out, and we'd be happy to chat. We'll be sending you the email tomorrow that'll have all of our info, and we look forward to connecting.
Yeah.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night, y'all.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us.